Jack Harper had the sort of face you'd forget while still looking at it. Average height, average build, unremarkable brown hair. The kind of human who could disappear in a crowd of three, which made him perfect for his job. "Ambassador Harper, your shuttle is waiting," said the terminal AI as Jack finished reviewing his notes. He nodded, gathered his simple leather portfolio, and headed toward the diplomatic bay. The Earth United Embassy on Centauri Station was deliberately modest, a calculated decision by the human diplomatic corps. Humans had joined the galactic community only 15 standard years ago, practically newborns on the cosmic scale. Most species had been spacefaring for millennia. Some, like the ancient Etherians, claimed to have witnessed the birth of stars now long dead. Jack's shuttle was equally unimpressive, clean, functional, and about as flashy as a tax accountant's dress shoes. It stood in stark contrast to the vessels around it. The Krell battlecruiser docking 3 bays down was essentially a floating weapon with engines attached, bristling with enough firepower to glass a small moon. The Merovian diplomatic vessel looked like what would happen if Apple designed spaceships in the 31st century, all gleaming curves and impossible geometries that somehow bent light just to look prettier. As Jack boarded his shuttle, Admiral Grex Thul of the Krell Empire stomped past, flanked by 4 honor guards carrying plasma halberds. The Admiral, a 9-foot-tall reptilian with emerald scales and cybernetic eye enhancements, glanced at Jack's shuttle and made a sound suspiciously like a snort. "The humans send 1 diplomat? In that?" The Admiral's translator rendered his clicks and growls into standard galactic. "How appropriate." Jack just smiled pleasantly. "Good day, Admiral. Looking forward to today's discussions." The Admiral didn't bother responding. The Krell had been a galactic superpower since humans were figuring out bronze tools. Why would he waste breath on Earth's representative? Jack settled into his seat as the shuttle autopilot engaged. Today's meeting of the Galactic Council was arguably the most important diplomatic event since humanity's introduction to the wider universe. At stake, development rights to Proxima Centauri D, a mineral-rich planet in humanity's cosmic backyard. The planet had somehow remained unclaimed in the complex web of territorial agreements that defined galactic politics and oversight that became instantly significant when preliminary scans revealed vast deposits of gravitonium, the rare element essential for next-generation FTL drives. Every superpower wanted it. The Krell Empire needed it for their expanding military. The Merovians saw it as the key to technological dominance for another millennium. The Etherian Collective viewed it as their right, given their self-appointed position as the galaxy's eldest and wisest civilization. In humanity? Well, Earth needed it because humans were still playing catch-up after joining the galactic community late. But nobody expected the cosmic new kids to actually get it. The betting pools across 17 sectors gave humans odds somewhere between laughable and why bother showing up. Jack smiled to himself as the shuttle merged into the diplomatic traffic lane. He reviewed his strategy one final time. He'd spent months studying each species, their cultures, their biological imperatives, their psychological blind spots, knowledge no military force could match. The shuttle approached the massive rotating ring of the Galactic Council headquarters. It's time to play the game. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council looked like someone had given an unlimited budget to a designer whose only instruction was make it impressive. The ceiling soared hundreds of meters overhead, a transparent dome showing the star-speckled blackness of space. The chamber floor was arranged in concentric circles, with the most powerful civilizations positioned closest to the center. Floating holographic nameplates hovered above each delegation's position. Jack noted his assigned spot second to last ring, wedged between the methane-breathing Hoborians, who required a special environmental bubble, and an empty seat reserved for the notoriously isolationist quantum consciousness of Betelgeuse, which hadn't sent a representative in over 300 years but still maintained its membership out of tradition. As Jack took his seat, he felt the stares. Not the openly hostile ones from militaristic species like the Krell, but the more subtle, almost pitying looks from the elder races. The Merovian delegation, led by high-tech Narch Zilquantus, whispered among themselves while occasionally glancing at Jack. Their silver skin and neural interface crowns glittered under the chamber lights. "Human, you are punctual." "A commendable primitive virtue," said a melodious voice to Jack's left. He turned to find himself face-to-face with Ambassador Aeon Tool of the Etherian Collective, a willowy, translucent being whose age was rumored to be measured in millennia. The Etherians considered themselves the galaxy's natural philosophers and mentors, viewing younger species with the benevolent condescension of adults watching toddlers learn to walk. Ambassador Aeon Tool, Jack replied with a respectful nod. I always enjoy being underestimated for doing the bare minimum. The Etherian's expression remained serene, the joke either missed or ignored. We have observed your species with great interest. So much potential, yet so unrefined. Perhaps in another 1,000 years you might be ready for a seat in the inner circles. That's very generous. We might surprise you sooner, Jack said with the same pleasant, forgettable smile. Before the Etherian could respond, the chamber lights dimmed, and the council arbiter, a towering, multi-limbed being wrapped in ceremonial robes, floated to the central platform. The 9,742nd session of the Galactic Council is now in session, the arbiter announced, voice amplified throughout the chamber. Today's primary agenda: territorial claims and development rights for the planetary body designated Proxima Centauri D. Jack settled back as the chamber's acoustics delivered every word perfectly to each attendee, regardless of their seating position. He'd done his research. Each delegation would receive precisely 30 minutes to present their case, followed by questions and deliberations. Admiral Grexthal of the Krell was first, stomping to the central platform with the subtlety of a supernova. The Admiral's presentation was exactly what Jack had expected: a barely disguised military threat wrapped in diplomatic language. The Krell Empire has maintained peace in this sector for 9 millennia, the Admiral growled, as behind him, a holographic display showed the impressive might of the Krell fleet. We have the infrastructure, the manpower, and the military capacity to secure this valuable resource. The Empire's claim is backed by 16 defense treaties and our ability to deploy 7 battle groups to the region within minutes. Jack watched as several smaller civilizations shifted uncomfortably. The Krell method of diplomacy hadn't evolved beyond agree, or will vaporize your homeworld in several centuries. Effective but lacking subtlety. Next came High Technarch Zilquantis of the Merovians, whose silver environment suit hummed softly as he glided to the platform. The Merovian presentation was a dazzling display of technological prowess simulations, showing how their advanced extraction techniques would maximize resource yield while minimizing environmental impact. The Merovian Technocracy has pioneered every significant technological advancement in the last 3 millennia, Zilquantis said, his voice a perfect synthetic blend of authority and reassurance. Our mining algorithms alone are 87.3% more efficient than any other civilization present. The resource is clearly best developed by those with the superior technological capability. Several council members nodded appreciatively at the impressive display. Technology was a universal language. Ambassador Aeon Tool of the Etherians approached the platform last, moving with deliberate slowness that somehow commanded more attention than the previous speaker's theatrics. We were among the first to map this galaxy, the Etherian began, voice like wind through crystal. When the Krell were still territorial carnivores confined to a single continent, when the Merovians were pre-sapient water dwellers, we had already established the principles of cosmic stewardship that guide this very council. The Etherian presentation was subtle, no flashy holograms, just star charts showing ancient Etherian presence throughout the sector, and philosophical treatises on responsible resource management. It was both deeply impressive and subtly condescending to everyone else in the room. Through it all, Jack sat quietly, taking occasional notes, his expression revealing nothing. Several times, delegates from other species glanced his way, clearly wondering when or if Earth would make its case. Finally, the arbiter turned toward the human section. Ambassador Harper of Earth United, your delegation may now present your case. Every eye, ocular cluster, and sensory apparatus in the room turned toward Jack, most with expressions ranging from mild curiosity to outright dismissal. After the pageantry of the Superpowers, what could this primitive newcomer possibly say? Jack stood, straightened his simple blue diplomatic uniform, and walked calmly toward the central platform. Jack stood at the center of the chamber. The quiet hum of the environmental systems, the only sound as hundreds of alien diplomats waited for Earth's presentation. No holographic displays activated. No dramatic music swelled. Just a single human with a portfolio. Esteemed members of the council, Jack began, his voice calm and measured. Earth thanks you for this opportunity to address such distinguished company. Admiral Grexthul leaned over to his aide, a comment that his translator didn't quite muffle. This should be mercifully brief. Jack continued as if he hadn't heard. Rather than tell you what Earth can do with Proxima Centauri D, I'd like to take a moment to appreciate the incredible capabilities of our galactic neighbors. He turned toward the Krell delegation. The Empire's military might is truly awe-inspiring. 16 battle fleets, each capable of reducing a planet to molten slag. Admiral Grexthul himself led the successful campaign against the Vorax horde, saving countless lives across 3 sectors. The Admiral straightened, his scaled chest puffing slightly at the recognition. Jack shifted his attention to the Merovians. And the Technocracy's innovations have transformed galactic society. Your gravitational manipulation technology alone has revolutionized everything from medicine to architecture. High-tech Narj Qantas's recent paper on quantum field harmonics was, if I may say, brilliantly elegant. The Merovian's silver face remained impassive, but the neural crown atop his head glowed slightly brighter. And the Etherian Collective, Jack continued, nodding respectfully toward Ambassador Aeon Toole. Your philosophical frameworks underpin our very concept of interstellar cooperation. The Etherian principles of cosmic harmony have guided peaceful development for millennia. The Etherian inclined their heads slightly, the barest acknowledgement. Earth is young, Jack admitted. We don't have battle fleets or revolutionary technology or ancient wisdom. What we do have is questions, and respect for those who might answer them. A murmur ran through the chamber. This wasn't the desperate plea or bombastic claim they'd expected. Admiral Grexthul was the first to break protocol, his booming voice echoing. Questions. The Krell Empire doesn't have time for human curiosity. We have the military strength to take this world by right of power. To emphasize his point, the Admiral activated a holographic display showing Krell battle formations. The implicit threat hung in the air. High-tech Narj Qantas immediately countered, his own holographic display springing to life. Military posturing is unnecessary and primitive. Our extraction algorithms can harvest 73.4% more gravitonium than Krell methods. The resource clearly belongs with those who can use it most efficiently. The Merovian display showed complex simulations of automated mining operations, each more impressive than the last. Not to be outdone, Ambassador Aeon Toole raised a graceful hand. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as the Etherian's natural bioluminescence increased. Both approaches lack vision. The collective has overseen resource distribution for eons. Only we understand the delicate balance required. Jack watched, saying nothing as the 3 superpowers began talking over each other. The Admiral's threats became less veiled, the Technarch's statistics more pointed, and the Etherian's pronouncements more condescending. Other council members shifted uncomfortably as the tension rose. The Arbiter attempted to restore order, but the momentum of rivalry had taken over. Jack noticed several smaller civilizations' representatives making notes, likely updating their diplomatic reports to reflect the growing hostility between the superpowers. Throughout it all, Jack would occasionally smile or jot something in his portfolio. At one point, during a particularly heated exchange between the Krell and Merovians, he actually checked his watch. "Is there something amusing, human?" snapped Admiral Grexthul, noticing the gesture. "Not at all, Admiral," Jack replied calmly. "I'm simply noting that we've spent 47 minutes watching 3 great powers explain why they're each uniquely qualified to develop this resource. Yet none of you has addressed the most fundamental question." "And what question is that?" asked high-tech Narj Qantas, curiosity momentarily overcoming disdain. Jack closed his portfolio. "Why this sudden interest in a planet that's been in my species' home system all along? A planet that, until 6 standard months ago, none of you had even filed a preliminary claim on?" A silence fell over the chamber. Jack smiled. "I believe we're ready for the next phase of discussions." The Arbiter, sensing a shift in the chamber's mood, called for a brief recess. Delegates clustered in small groups, conversing in hushed tones, occasionally glancing toward the human representative who stood alone, reviewing notes in his portfolio. Admiral Grexthul stomped toward Jack, looming over him. Up close, The Admiral's cybernetic eye whirred softly as it focused. Your observation was unexpected, the Admiral admitted grudgingly. The Krell appreciate directness. What is your actual proposal, human? Before Jack could respond, high-tech Narch Qantas glided over, the Merovian's movement so smooth he seemed to float above the floor. Indeed, the Technarch interjected. Your question implies you have information relevant to these proceedings. The Technocracy values data above all. Ambassador Aeon Tool joined them moments later, completing the triangle of galactic superpowers now surrounding the human. Perhaps, the Etherian suggested, luminescent patterns rippling across their translucent skin. We might benefit from a private consultation before formal discussions resume. Jack looked between the three powers: military might, technological brilliance, and ancient wisdom, all suddenly interested in what he had to say. Precisely as planned. I'd be honored, Jack replied, though I believe transparency benefits everyone. Perhaps we could use one of the side chambers where other interested parties might join? The suggestion clearly displeased the superpowers, but none wanted to appear obstructionist. Within minutes, they'd moved to a smaller chamber adjacent to the main hall. Representatives from 7 other civilizations discreetly followed. Inside the consultation room, Jack activated a simple holographic display from his portfolio. It showed Proxima Centauri D rotating slowly, with geological survey data superimposed. 6 months ago, Jack began. Earth's preliminary surveys detected significant gravitonium deposits on this planet. As newcomers to the galactic community, we followed protocol and registered our findings with the Council's Astronomical Survey Office. The Merovian Technarch's neural crown flickered with rapid calculations. The ASO is an antiquated bureaucratic office. Few monitor its registrations. Precisely, Jack agreed. Yet within days of our filing, 3 major powers suddenly expressed interest in a previously ignored planet in humanity's home system. Quite a coincidence. The Admiral's scales darkened, the Krell equivalent of a flush. The Empire regularly reviews all potential strategic resources. Of course, Jack nodded. Just as the Merovian Technocracy regularly reviews technological opportunities, and the Etherian Collective regularly contemplates cosmic balance, all simultaneously. Regarding the same planet. Days after our filing, Ambassador Aeon Tool's luminescence dimmed slightly. You imply impropriety. Not at all, Jack said smoothly. I'm simply establishing context for my proposal. He expanded the holographic display, highlighting specific regions of the planet. Our surveys show gravitonium deposits here, here, and here. Significant, but not as extensive as rumors suggest. The Admiral made a dismissive gesture. Your primitive scanning technology likely missed. Our primitive technology was developed with assistance from the Arcturus Conclave, Jack interrupted, naming a reclusive but highly advanced civilization. They found our approach to quantum resonance imaging refreshingly innovative. It silenced the room. The Arcturus Conclave rarely collaborated with anyone, let alone newcomers. Jack continued, There's something else our scans detected. He adjusted the display to show a different data layer, these energy signatures in the southern hemisphere. We believe they're remnants of ancient technology, possibly precursor in origin. The reaction was immediate. The Merovian's crown blazed with sudden activity. The Etherian's skin rippled with intense patterns. Even the stoic Admiral shifted his weight forward. Precursor technology was the galactic Holy Grail artifacts left by a mysterious civilization that had apparently achieved technological miracles before vanishing eons ago. Even fragments could advance a civilization's capabilities by centuries. This information wasn't in your filed report, the Technarch said accusingly. We were still verifying our findings, Jack replied. And frankly, we were concerned about how quickly our initial report had circulated. Ambassador Aeon Tool's voice dropped to a near whisper. The Collective has studied precursor remnants for millennia. If your claims are accurate, proper philosophical oversight is essential. Not to be outdone, Admiral Grexthol leaned in. Precursor technology has significant security implications. The Empire must ensure it doesn't fall into dangerous hands. And the Technocracy has the only specialists capable of properly extracting and analyzing such findings, added the Technarch. Jack watched them, noting how quickly their focus had shifted from gravitonium to precursor technology, each now arguing for control based on their particular strengths. More importantly, they were now talking to each other rather than at each other, trying to form alliances against competing claims. A representative from the Cygnus Trading Federation, who had quietly joined the consultation, finally spoke up. Perhaps joint development would serve everyone's interests? With appropriate profit-sharing arrangements, of course. The suggestion, which would have been dismissed outright an hour earlier, now received thoughtful consideration from the superpowers, each calculating how to maximize their access to potential precursor technology while minimizing others. Jack closed his portfolio. Earth would certainly welcome collaborative approaches. After all, we're more interested in the knowledge than the power it might bring. As the room erupted into animated discussion, with proposals and counter-proposals flying, Jack caught the eye of the Arbiter, who had discreetly entered the room. The Arbiter gave an almost imperceptible nod of respect. They both knew what had just happened. The quiet human had completely changed the game. When the Council reconvened, the atmosphere had transformed. What had begun as three superpowers steamrolling toward inevitable conflict had evolved into a complex web of potential alliances, each civilization jockeying for position in what was now framed as a historic collaborative opportunity. Jack had returned to his modest seat in the outer rings, but now representatives from various civilizations found reasons to pass by his position, dropping comments or questions that were thinly veiled attempts at private negotiation. The Cygnus Trading Federation would value Earth's input on transportation infrastructure for the development project, murmured a fox-like representative, but slipping Jack a data crystal. The Hoborian Commons appreciates humanity's transparent approach, bubbled the methane breather from inside its environmental suit. Perhaps we might discuss environmental monitoring systems. Jack accepted each overture with the same pleasant, unremarkable smile, promising nothing yet dismissing nothing. Near the central platform, the three superpowers were engaged in an elaborate diplomatic dance. The Krell Admiral was now emphasizing the Empire's ability to provide security for research teams rather than their right to claim the planet outright. The Merovian Technocracy was detailing specialized extraction equipment that would preserve potential precursor artifacts. The Etherian ambassador was offering historical context from similar discoveries. The Council recognizes high-tech Narch Quantus, announced the Arbiter. The Merovian glided to the center, his silver environment suit gleaming. In the interest of scientific advancement, the Technocracy proposes a joint development commission. We would, of course, provide the primary research team, given our expertise in precursor decryption algorithms. Admiral Grexthal immediately moved to object, but in a surprising display of restraint, modified his approach mid-stride. The Empire acknowledges Merovian expertise in research, but insists on providing the security detail and extraction equipment. Our new gravitational stabilizers are specifically designed for delicate archaeological operations. This was new information, and Jack noticed several delegates updating their notes. The Krell weren't known for delicate anything, let alone archaeological tools. The Admiral was clearly improvising, trying to secure a role in the operation. Ambassador Aeon Tool countered with typical Etherian grace. Any investigation of precursor sites requires philosophical grounding and historical context that only the collective can provide. We propose a triumvirate leadership structure, with equal authority distributed among our three civilizations. Jack watched as the superpowers, so recently at each other's throats, now worked to frame themselves as essential partners rather than sole claimants, just as he had anticipated. When a brief lull appeared in the proceedings, Jack rose and addressed the Arbiter. Earth requests recognition. The Arbiter, perhaps curious about what the human might say next, quickly acknowledged him. The Council recognizes Ambassador Harper of Earth United. Jack walked to the central platform, aware of the intense focus now directed his way. No longer dismissive or condescending, the chamber's attention was sharp, calculating. Esteemed colleagues, Jack began, Earth appreciates the collaborative spirit that has emerged in these discussions. Before we proceed further, I'd like to share additional information that may help shape our approach. He activated his holographic display, showing a different view of Proxima Centauri D. Our research teams have been conducting remote sensing operations for several months. We've recently identified what appears to be an energy shielding pattern consistent with precursor preservation protocols. The chamber erupted in excited murmurs. Precursor preservation protocols were exceedingly rare sites where ancient technology had been deliberately preserved rather than simply abandoned. Furthermore, Jack continued once the noise subsided, we've begun preliminary work on decryption algorithms specifically tailored to this energy signature pattern. High Technarch Qantas leaned forward. The Technocracy would be very interested in collaborating on such algorithms. As would Earth, Jack replied. In fact, we've already established a research outpost in orbit around Proxima Centauri d. Nothing extensive, merely a scientific station with a small team. The revelation sent another ripple through the chamber. Earth had been busy while the superpowers were preparing their territorial claims. Admiral Grexthol's cybernetic eye whirred rapidly. The Empire was not informed of this development. We filed the appropriate notifications with the Council's research registry, Jack said mildly. As is standard procedure for non-invasive scientific observation within one's home system. The Admiral couldn't argue with that. The planet was, technically, within Earth's home star system, and observation posts didn't require special permission. Perhaps, suggested Ambassador Aeon Toole, Earth might consider hosting representatives from our civilizations at this research outpost as observers and advisors. And there it was, exactly what Jack had been working toward. The superpowers now asking for access, rather than demanding control. Earth would welcome such cooperation, Jack said, allowing a hint of enthusiasm to color his previously neutral tone. In fact, we've designed the station with additional modules that could accommodate various environmental requirements. The Krell military-grade environmental systems would be particularly valuable for securing sensitive areas. The Admiral straightened at the recognition of Krell technology. And the Merovian computational architecture would significantly enhance our decryption efforts, Jack added, nodding to the Technarch. While the Etherian historical databases would provide essential context for interpreting any findings, he concluded, acknowledging the luminescent ambassador. By the time Jack returned to his seat, the chamber was abuzz with activity. What had begun as a dispute over mining rights had transformed into a collaborative research initiative with Earth at its center. The superpowers, so accustomed to dictating terms, now found themselves competing for favorable positions within a framework essentially designed by the quiet human. More remarkable still, they seemed pleased with the arrangement. 3 days later, Jack stood in the observation dome of Earth's research station orbiting Proxima Centauri d, watching as a Merovian technical vessel docked alongside a Krell security cruiser. Below them, the rust-colored planet turned slowly, its southern hemisphere occasionally flaring with energy patterns that had so captivated the galactic community. Ambassador Harper, said Station Director Ellie Wade as she approached with a data tablet. The final accords have been ratified by the Council, and 97 civilizations have signed on to the Proxima Cooperative Research Initiative, with Earth serving as the primary coordinator. Jack accepted the tablet, scanning the document. And the resource-sharing provisions? Exactly as you outlined, Ellie confirmed. Earth receives 30% of all gravitonium extracted, with guaranteed access to any technological discoveries. The superpowers each get 20%, with the remaining 10% distributed among the smaller participants. Jack nodded, satisfied. And our research team? Ready to discover the artifacts your team planted in the southern hemisphere last month, Ellie replied with a slight smile. The energy signatures are performing exactly as designed, convincing enough to register on advanced scans, but vague enough that no one can pinpoint exactly what they're detecting. Perfect, Jack said. And the actual gravitonium deposits? Exactly where we said they were. Substantial, but not galaxy-changing. Enough to justify the operation, but not enough to prompt anyone to risk breaking the accords. Jack handed back the tablet. Have the Etherian representative arrived yet? Scheduled to dock tomorrow. Their delegation includes 3 of their most respected historians, all eager to be the first to document the precursor site. Jack smiled. They'll be disappointed when the artifacts turn out to be remnants of an advanced but decidedly non-precursor civilization. But still valuable enough to justify the research, Ellie noted. And by then the joint mining operations will be well established. And Earth will have direct access to 3 advanced technologies we'd otherwise have waited decades to develop, Jack added. Krell gravitational stabilizers, Merovian quantum computing, and Etherian historical archives. A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched another ship approach, this one bearing the insignia of the Cygnus Trading Federation, eager to establish transportation contracts. It was never about the precursor technology, was it? Ellie finally asked. That was just the lure. Jack shook his head. It was never even about the gravitonium, though that's a nice bonus. It was about relationships. Earth needed to establish itself as a serious player without triggering the defensive instincts of the superpowers. So instead of challenging them, we made them want to work with us, Jack finished. The galaxy's powers don't respect strength or wealth, or even intelligence as much as they respect being needed. We gave each of them a role where they felt essential. The station's communication system chimed softly. Ambassador, Admiral Grex Thole is requesting permission to come aboard. He says he has a personal gift he wishes to present. Jack raised an eyebrow. A Krell bearing gifts? That's new. Permission granted. 30 minutes later, Jack stood face to face with the towering admiral in the station's conference room. The Krell looked distinctly uncomfortable, his scaled hands holding a ceremonial box. Ambassador Harper, the admiral began, his translator struggling to convey the formal tones. The Krell Empire wishes to recognize Earth's strategic wisdom. This is a ceremonial dagger from my own ancestral clutch. It has never before been presented to a non-Krell. Jack accepted the ornate weapon with appropriate solemnity. The Empire honors Earth, Admiral. We will treasure this symbol of our new relationship. After the Admiral departed, high-tech Narch Qantas arrived with an offering of Merovian computational crystals to enhance Earth's research capabilities. Later that same day, Ambassador Aeon Toole presented a vial containing what the Etherian described as memory spores from our ancestral groves, it traditionally shared only with philosophical equals. By week's end, 17 different civilizations had found reasons to present Earth with symbolic gifts, technology samples, or trade proposals. The quiet human strategy had worked better than even he had anticipated. 1 month later, Jack sat in the now expanded observation dome, nursing a cup of coffee as he watched teams from a dozen worlds working together on the planet's surface. Beside him, the Arbiter, making an unprecedented personal visit to the research station, observed the same scene. You never actually lied, the Arbiter noted, its multi-limbed form shifting slightly. In all the proceedings, you never once made a false statement. Jack shrugged. Earth couldn't afford to be caught in a lie. We just allowed everyone to make their own assumptions, based on their own biases about humanity, the Arbiter concluded. They underestimated you because you were quiet, because your technology seemed primitive, because your species is young. People hear what they expect to hear, Jack said. Superpowers expect threats or submission. We gave them neither. The Arbiter made a sound that might have been a chuckle. The Council has existed for 12,000 years, Ambassador. In that time, I've seen empires rise and fall, technologies transform worlds, philosophical movements reshape entire sectors. But I've rarely seen anything as elegant as watching one quiet human convince the galaxy's powers to compete for the privilege of helping Earth. Jack smiled and raised his coffee cup. To underestimation. May our enemies continue to excel at it. Below them, teams of aliens who had been galactic rivals for millennia worked side by side, extracting resources and studying technology, all under the coordination of the galaxy's newcomers. The quiet humans who had somehow ended up with the best seat at the table,